Okay, welcome back to another episode of Banking Without Borders. So last weekend, in the name of YouTube, I spent £110 on this debit card. Okay, and if you're listening right now, I'm holding the new titanium-plated Revolut Audi F1 debit card. And I should probably mention that only the front is plated in titanium because the back is plastic. And yes, those are my details, but this card is frozen and I don't plan on using it, which makes the whole purchase even more ridiculous. So the card weighs 19 grams, right? Which means for £110, I've effectively purchased the most overpriced rectangle of my entire adult life. If you actually think about the material cost of this card, right, the numbers are pretty silly. The titanium is probably worth pennies and the plastic is even less. I mean, I paid all that money for what? Because it certainly wasn't for titanium. It was for the idea of titanium. And in pure financial terms, I have been shafted by a debit card. But that is also what makes this interesting, because this isn't about cost. It's about the fact that bank cards are starting to behave like luxury goods. And that's weird, right? Because banks used to compete on rates, rewards, and service, but now apparently they compete on vibes. So Jan, when did banking stop being about utility and start becoming about status? And I think we have to start with Revolut, because Ultra really feels like one of the clearest examples of this, almost like taking the American Express playbook from the past and pushing it even harder.
Jonny, before we look at Revolut, I'd like to make a point here. I think there's a fundamental difference between cards that actually offer, or cards or bank accounts that offer a real financial benefit, and some that are purely status or cosmetic driven. If you're eyeing Revolut Ultra, for example, because you can make use of these subscriptions that it provides, or the elevated rate of rev points that you can earn, then it makes sense. You know, if you're really utilizing these benefits and you come out with a plus at the end of each month, great. Then that has nothing to do with status. But for many people, I have a feeling that these cards are, more fashionable products, right? They're accessories, and it's enough to have a look at Instagram, for example. You'll see people showing their Amex cards into the camera, right? And trying to associate themselves with wealth, right? Because these cards are typically a little harder to get, right? You got to pay a few hundred pounds per year in order to get them. People try to use them in order to seem wealthier than they actually are. Not saying that's the case for everyone, but I think there's a majority of people that look at these cards that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a case for that. I mean, I'm familiar with a couple of people that I know that have Amex Platinum because they travel, so they utilize it for the lounge pass, the unlimited lounge passes essentially that you get. And that's a good benefit, but at the same time, like, you could get that through Lounge Key or Dragon Pass for a lot less than the cost. So it makes me think that they are probably utilizing them as a means of, yes, the utility, the lounge pass, but also possibly as like it's going to elevate their status somewhat in society. I don't know if that's what they're thinking, but that's, what you might think looking as an outsider. Or they just simply haven't done the maths. Because like Jan said, like in some cases, these cards can fundamentally be useful. If you're using these subscriptions that Ultra has, for example, and then you get Ultra, that could be a game changer in terms of how much money you could save. And I think if you're looking at it like that, then fine, Jan. But I think if people are looking to these cards as a means of elevating their like socioeconomic status in society, making them look wealthier or feel, I think in some cases, mate, I think some people feel better having these cards, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like, I've made it, and good for you, but ultimately you're spending £500-600, whatever platinum is, a year for that feeling, which is actually remarkably sad, I would say. And the same for Revolut Ultra, and the same for a titanium plated card, because I think a lot of people just want to be able to go, not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but I think there are a select few people that want to go and pay for something in a restaurant or at a shop. I mean, who even pays with physical cards today anyway? I think the only people that do that are maybe those without a smartphone, or people that literally want to do this. They want to tap, or they want to throw it down on the table. So it makes that noise. I'm not sure if you picked that up. And that noise is an indicator of status. This sound. And that is sad. That is sad. I mean, how did we get here, Jan? I don't know. I mean, we could throw it back to the original metal card. Jan, do you know which was the original metal card?
I think the Centurion came first, if I'm not fully wrong. The Amex Centurion.
Yes, in 1999. And that, I don't know, mate. That feels like, if status is a real thing, not something that I believe in, but if it really is a thing, to have status, whatever. The Centurion card feels like it, right? Because that requires a serious degree of spending, which would arguably be, meaning you're earning a lot, right? Platinum or Ultra, these things really just require you to be able to afford like 50 quid, 60 quid a month. Some people can do that, even if they don't earn enough to really justify it.
I think the fascinating thing is if you type in Amex on Instagram, there's some content about the Amex Centurion, but you'll be seeing more content about the Amex Platinum, and typically by influencers that show these in the camera, trying to obviously make people aware of the affiliate program American Express has in order to get some commission out of it, but also in order to seem wealthy. Typically people that some might have moved to the Middle East, live in fancy buildings, sell trading courses. We all know these people, right? But also some people that are just interested in trying to appear wealthy within their existing circle of friends. I think that's really fascinating because we see similar behaviors in other industries. If you look at fashion, for example, who typically goes ahead and buys Louis Vuitton products? Who waits 2 hours in front of a store potentially in order to be let in and purchase a product. I'm not going to say rich people will not do this, but my feeling is that the majority of people that purchase these products are not wealthy, but they're trying to appear wealthy.
When you say it out loud, you can. Yeah, I see it. I can see how it could correlate with these cards and with these status accounts. So having like the platinum card would be like the equivalent of having a Louis Vuitton handbag.
There's no rational reason to produce a bank card out of metal rather than the way this thing appears to its users. It's heavier, it might be a little thicker, but there's no, plastic.
Harder
is
to
just,
lose.
just as nice.
It's harder to
lose. I mean, where does that come from? Never heard of that. I mean, how would this be harder to lose? It's not making sense at all, Jonny.
If it fell out of your pocket, Jan, you'd hear it bang on the floor and you'd go, oh, I dropped my metal card. Whereas plastic, you just can't hear. Hey,
if you live in a very quiet place, potentially, but wherever I am, I would not hear my card falling out of my wallet. If it's doesn't matter which metal it's
There's
made
no
from.
utility demand for this whatsoever. There is no real logical reason to get it, except for status. Why does Revolut Ultra at least appear to have like the idea of those that you choose to have Ultra are looking to appear like they have some level of status? I get it with the Amex Centurion. I also somewhat get it with Platinum, but is that same perception creeping into Revolut Ultra as well? Is Revolut Ultra perceived to be like higher status?
Well, they're surely trying to market it that way. Have a look at the Revolut product pages. You see these cards from all kinds of angles, right? They're being shown, so there's reflections on the metal. You see the engraving.
Yeah,
they look like art. And Revolut does an excellent job marketing these cards. So they're truly trying to have people think of these as status symbols, because it's where the money is. Let's be 100% honest, right? I mean, there's if you look at fashion, right? Who's making the most profit per handbag? I mean, I'm sure it's not H&M, but it's rather Louis Vuitton that sell handbags for thousands of dollars or pounds instead of maybe 15 to 20 quid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. What is it called? LMVH Moet Hennessy or something is the company behind Louis Vuitton. Huge organization, hugely successful. How did we get here then? Why are banks? Why is Revolut choosing to market Ultra in this way? You said obviously as a means of generating revenue. I get that, but is there more to it than this? Because, is it because, okay, sex sells, whereas, having a boring conversation with someone isn't going to be as enticing or as compelling to watch. Whereas, people are more drawn to romance. And so is it like trying to romanticize the debit card or the current account or the bank account? Because better interest rates, or I don't know, cashback just isn't very sexy.
Appeal sells better than exchange rates. That's what I believe personally. And
appeal,
right? That they're trying to sell these cards as status symbols for that exact reason.
But do people really believe that? If you're listening to this right now or watching this, do you really believe that? Does anyone actually believe that having Revolut Ultra will increase their status in society? I mean, it just seems like no one would fall for that, to me at least. Look, I know I'm sat here with this card. I know I got the card. I did get the card, but there's a reason I got that. I got that because I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to make a video about it. Is anyone really getting it just to feel like they're a part of a club of special people?
Maybe not within our existing audience, because I believe those are people that are interested in finance. Those are, probably rational people that inform themselves before making a financial decision.
Yeah.
But many people in society are not like that.
I hope so. But if this is true, then, people are purchasing a rectangular piece or plated piece of metal to help massage or elevate themselves. And that is terrifying. Are you familiar with the Fire Festival, Jan?
I am actually, yeah. Saw a Netflix docu on that.
Quite an interesting anecdote is that the founder of Fire Festival, Billy McFarlane, he was actually a bit ahead of the game with this idea of having like a private exclusive card or club. He founded something before Fire Festival called Magnesis, I believe it was called. And that had a metal card, and it enabled like discounts, access, like a concierge service. But that was back in 2014, and it never really took off. At least his interpretation of it didn't take off, or his attempt. But we have seen, obviously, that metal cards have elevated to some degree. I'm curious to get people's thoughts on this, but they feel a bit more like a meme now, Jan. Like a bit of a joke. Like, have metal cards not become a bit more of a joke today, and like these sort of status symbol accounts? Because it was started, like the idea of it was really pioneered by Billy McFarlane, who's a bit of a joke, really. He's a bit of a scammer. Like, he's a bit of a, we'd say, gas man. Now they feel like a bit of a joke. Obviously, they're not a joke to Revolut or N26 or I don't know who else has. Trade Republic have a metal card, right, buddy? Like,
fascinating one, yeah.
They're not a joke to these providers, obviously, but generally speaking, right, people that are watching this now are probably thinking, or listening to this, I haven't used a physical card in ages. Like, who's even using physical cards now, mate? I don't know. Anyone listening to this? Like, when do you use a physical card today? So the whole thing is kind of a bit of a joke. Like, who really bought the Revolut Audi F1 titanium card because, to use, to tap?
Jonny, why do they exist in the first place? That's
exactly.
The they exist because people buy them. So there must be people on this world that go ahead and purchase these cards. And if there's no benefits tied to them, like the Revolut Audi F1 card that you just mentioned, you went ahead and purchased last week, then it is about status. I mean, there's no other reason why you would do that, unless you're a huge F1 fan and willing to drop that money. But then, there are also gold-plated cards.
Yeah, there are.
You can't be a fan of gold.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one of them as well. And it looks quite nice. But do you know what? I was always too embarrassed to use it. For a little while, I think I had it for a bit, but I was always a bit embarrassed by it. Again, I bought this because I wanted to make a video about it. To me, it feels like a bit of a meme at this point, but it does exist. And it's certainly something the Revolut feel like they really want to push harder at. I mean, they're not the only fintech. We mentioned N26. N26 Metal is all about making a statement. That's all over the website. Make a statement. N26 Metal. For them, it's all about a premium identity as a means of, I guess, trying to differentiate the account, trying to find like we talked about, a way to sell it. I'm curious whether legacy banks are interested in this. I know Amex is a legacy company that pioneered the idea of prestige, but do you think the likes of HSBC, Barclays, I don't know, Bank of America, they might already have metal cards? I'm not sure if the World Elite MasterCard is metal, but I wonder if we'll see, Jan, a bit more of a push into like bundled prestige accounts by legacy.
With legacy banks, I mean, it'll likely not happen anytime soon. Those guys are always late to the party. You've seen it with low exchange rates. You've seen it with online banking and many other areas. So if there's money in this, and this is something that
is there money in this?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Maybe legacy is a really good indicator of that, Jan. If legacy adopts something, there is money in it. If they don't, do our parents, do the generation that's came before us care? Because they typically are legacy users. Do you think they care for stuff like this as well?
That's a good question, Jonny. That's a good question. I guess time will tell. One thing you can be sure about is that if this turns out to be successful, if this turns out to be a way to earn money, then it would take at least 10 years for legacy banks to really pick up that trend and develop their products in a similar direction. That's just because these entities are so big They make decisions insanely slow. Everything takes forever. So yeah,
I can
would not
imagine.
agree. Yeah.
I can imagine a bundled account, right, buddy, from the likes of HSBC or Barclays beyond like the status accounts, for example, like a bundled ultra-esque account at like a high tier, like a high monthly fee, which might have like an accompanying metal card or platinum or titanium card. Because ultimately, I think that they don't have to stock these cards anyway. They're probably made to order. So they don't cost the banks anything until you pay some money for the account.
I think in the meantime, it's important to say, or basically recommend to everyone listening to this that we definitely advise against looking at these cards as fashionable symbols. They're definitely not. They serve a purpose. They help you pay. Typically, you don't even have to take them out. I know it says World Elite on here. Can you see this? I hope so. It says World Elite on this card, and it's Revolut metal card. Does that make me somewhat special? No, it doesn't. Not at all. I barely take it out of my wallet. That's actually that's the one I never even carry with me, because the one I carry with me broke apart. I think I've shown it into the camera before. But yeah, it doesn't make me better than anyone else.
It's funny because even Monzo, they had Monzo Premium that had a metal card, didn't they? But they discontinued that.
Yeah, right.
So they swiftly jumped out of that swimming pool. They have a premium account. It's called Max. That tells you something as well. Like, adoption was probably low. But I think that's an indicator of whether or not this is actually something that people are truly interested in. But what Jan's saying holds heaviest. It's like, don't be drawn to I think everyone, like Jan also said, most people listening to this are probably very rational. So you don't need me to tell you, don't be drawn to this for this idea of status. But do look at the benefits that it will enable, and, cross-check those with the way you live your life and the things that you do, and see if there's like a way to possibly save money as a result of these bundled, metal, special, unique accounts that are available. And honestly, my take on this card, it is not worth it. It is just simple.
Well, it looks beautiful, Jonny. It looks beautiful. Let's be fair. It looks beautiful. It looks nice. I love Formula One. I love precious metals. I think it's fascinating that people actually go ahead and make something like that. Make a bank card out of metal.
I've got so many
reason to spend £110 on it. No, for me it's not. Not at all. Not a question.
I've got so many metal cards now from Revolut that I could probably melt them down and sell them. I could probably melt them down. I'm curious if people listening to this or people watching this are interested in these premium types of cards. Are you interested? If you are, let me know. Maybe it's because of the way it looks. That's fine. Don't be afraid if that's how you feel. I'd love to hear from you. Or even if you're...
No judgment.
No judgment. No judgment. And, maybe, Jan, there's someone out there that thinks it does elevate their status. I would love to hear from those people. But also more about the practical benefits as well. I think those are important. They do exist. The practical benefits of the debit card, I'm not so sure. I guess maybe if you have a Coke problem.
Some as said in the beginning, Jonny, some accounts, some cards provide extra benefits, some don't. Your Audi F1 card does not provide any additional benefits. The Revolut Ultra account does. So there's a distinction to be made here. If it makes sense from a financial perspective, then go for the premium account. And if the card is made out of brass, out of titanium, out of platinum, or whatever element of the element table there is, so be it. But don't not go ahead and purchase a card just because it looks fancy. Do not.
I didn't pay much attention during chemistry class, and my knowledge of the periodic table was not that good. But since getting a keen interest in finance, my knowledge of the periodic table has grown. I'm familiar with more elements these days as a result of these cards, these limited edition cards. Are they genuinely premium? Does anyone actually think they are premium?
They certainly look premium.
Okay, everybody, that's it this week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And if you are watching on YouTube, please do give us a like. And if you're listening, do consider rating us, whether it's on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Please do leave the show a rating. That would really help us. That'll help the channel and help the podcast get in front of more people.
Thanks everyone for listening. It's been a pleasure. Let me just do this. It doesn't work. Forget Jonny. I did it while I was on my table. I was like, bing! It was amazing. But as soon as I hold it, it doesn't do that anymore. Forget about it. Stay rational, everyone. Goodbye.
Stay rational. Bye-bye.